What is up, guys? It's Sky, and in the gameplay you see Rise of the Tomb Raider played on a PS4 Pro. I wanted to discuss the PS4 Pro and the state of the current console generation. As a lot of you probably already know, Microsoft officially announced the specs of the Xbox One Scorpio last week. This is really the first time in history that there was a mid-generation console refresh that actually offered some really tangible performance increases to where it's almost like they're rolling out a whole new console. Now, I actually picked up a PS4 Pro last year because I needed a second PS4 anyway for recording gameplay. New games are starting to take advantage of the upgraded hardware, and a lot of old games like Rise of the Tomb Raider were patched to give higher resolutions. Now, I play on a 1080p monitor, and I don't plan on upgrading to 4K anytime soon. Maybe if this channel takes off and I get like 1 million subscribers, but until then, it's 1080p for me. Now, the PS4 Pro actually does offer some tangible benefits for 1080p TV users. The system will actually render at a higher resolution and then downsample the image to 1080p, and the difference is noticeable, especially with a lot of modern games that use post-processed anti-aliasing effects. Some of the cheaper quality anti-aliasing effects look really blurry and are not easy on the eyeballs. Battlefield 1 actually does this, where it renders at a higher resolution and downsamples to 1080p, and it looks excellent and runs at a rock solid 60 FPS. To me, that's not the most notable feature of the PS4 Pro upgrade. The most significant feature is the upgrade of the Wi-Fi chip. Most people don't know this, but the original PS4 had a really crappy Wi-Fi chip. It also only supported N-Wi-Fi, the old standard. If you're forced to play multiplayer games on Wi-Fi like I am, then it was not a good time. Upgrading to the PS4 Pro sees huge improvements, and it even supports the new AC standard. Basically, Wi-Fi on the PS4 Pro is night and day better than the original PS4. Really, in my opinion, the original PS4 was a joke. The Xbox One even more so. I know that the general consumer, the casual gamer, was more than happy to get the PS4, but I've been a PC gamer and I've had 1080p graphics since 2011 with Battlefield 3. So I was more than disappointed to get a 2014 console that was already obsoleted by a game that was released on PC in 2011. Contrast that with the previous console generation where Sony charged $599 US to sell their PS3 and we're still selling it at a loss. Sony and Microsoft both initially lost money on every single console they sold to push bleeding edge technology on the market. People were mad at the Red Ring of Death issue on the Xbox 360, but that was really just a sign that Microsoft was trying to push as much technology as they could into their Xbox 360. And it showed. Multi-platform releases had parity with their PC counterparts for at least a couple years, I think. Not only that, but the previous generation consoles were able to have a 10-year life cycle with so much as a couple firmware updates released at regular intervals. Really, the Xbox 360 and PS3 were really killed PC gaming. Basically, at that point, you had consoles that could do everything that the PCs could do. They had hard drives, so you could install expansions and patches. They were connected online, so you could matchmake into multiplayer games. They had awesome social networking features and matchmaking services that were pretty much superior to anything you could do on PC, honestly. For Microsoft, this goes all the way back to the original Xbox, which at the time of its release was bleeding edge technology. The original Xbox and the PS2 were what made Nintendo bow out of the console arms race. The console market has always been a place for bleeding edge technology. If you think back to even the original Nintendo, which could do things that PCs just couldn't do at the time, people were kind of upset at Nintendo for putting old technology in their Nintendo Wii. Really, this is what Sony and Microsoft did with the current console generation. The PS4 was actually sold at a small profit. This to me was really underwhelming, and it left a kind of a bad taste in my mouth for this console generation. Sony and Microsoft realized that they have a monopoly on the market. They no longer feel like they have to take risks and work really hard to really wow the consumer. It's kind of like the Madden franchise. You remember back in like 2005 when EA got exclusive rights to making NFL games? Before that, you had the NFL 2K series, which was always a superior franchise. EA would work so hard every year to try to get their game to top NFL 2K. Then they just bought the NFL license. NFL Madden's been pretty much going downhill ever since. Every year is pretty much just a roster update and minor adjustments. To me, the PS4 Pro and Xbox One Scorpio are what the PS4 and Xbox One should have been from the beginning. There's no reason for Microsoft and Sony to charge more money to roll out new consoles at this point that are pretty much already obsoleted by PC hardware. Now, unfortunately, Microsoft lost the current generation console race from the get-go. They really mismanaged the launch of the Xbox One. The Xbox One and the Kinect were all really underwhelming. That's really the difference. If you're going to try to take risks and launch something new in the marketplace, then you better really wow the consumer. As it stands, the standard controller is a much better means of controlling a game than the Kinect. Now you have the PS4, which is installed in way more homes than the Xbox One. And since social networking features are such a huge part of consoles nowadays, in the current generation, the PS4 is going to win it. There's really no way that Microsoft can catch up, and the Xbox One Scorpio is going to make no difference. Pretty much nobody has 4K TVs, and if you can play all the same games on your original Xbox One, then most consumers aren't going to find any reason to have to upgrade to the Scorpio. If all your friends are on PSN, then you're not really going to find any reason to get an Xbox One if you haven't already. Really, console exclusives are underwhelming, and there aren't enough of them to justify buying one console over the other, especially when 99% of games are multi-platform games. You're going to have some people that are going to try to argue that Gears of War, Halo 5, Uncharted, and The Last of Us are compelling enough reasons to buy one console over the other. But you have to look back at the days of gaming back in the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo days when you really had console exclusives and multi-platform games were completely different from each other. Uncharted is not that good of a game. I'm sorry, guys. If you want to talk console exclusive games, then talk generational defining games like Super Mario 64 and Final Fantasy 7. If Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was actually an Xbox 360 exclusive, then you'd have a console exclusive. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is what I would call a generational defining game. If Microsoft had actually locked that up, then Sony would not be looking as good as they do now. As you guys know, I generally try to stay positive. I like to stay off the hate train because gaming is just a hobby. It's not good to take it too seriously. Just have fun with it, man. But in the current day and age of gaming, one of the biggest pet peeves of consumers is not getting enough for your money. Too many paid DLC and microtransactions, all for lackluster, lukewarm content that took someone all of a couple minutes to come up with. And really, this was reflected no better than in the release of the current console generation. Sony and Microsoft are way too concerned with simply turning a profit and not concerned enough about totally wowing the consumer. Because in days past, that's what the video game industry has been about. Wowing the consumer, wowing the gamer. Like the first time I booted up Super Mario 64 or Final Fantasy 7, I was sold from the get-go, and I know a lot of people were too. Additionally, getting a new console felt like playing the future now. But with the current gen, I feel like I'm playing 2 years ago now. Anyways, guys, that's my thoughts on the current console generation. I know it's a little ranty, not something I usually do, but I had to put it out there. If you're new here, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later.